Tonight's guest is David Bunt. David, welcome to the show.
Hi Vic, you okay?
Well, not doing bad, but I would be doing a lot better if I could get that silly baby shark song out of my head. Dave, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I'm 45 years old. I'm engaged to the high school sweetheart. I live in UK, England, in a small town called Winsford in the county of Cheshire. It's surrounded by countryside. When I left school, I joined the army in the Royal Engineers. I got medically discharged soon after with a leg injury. I'm big into me health and fitness, keen outdoors person, love fishing, extreme camping all over the UK. Anywhere remote, I love camping. Further away from public eye, better for me, more comfortable. My love for the outdoors is the reasons why I ended up bumping heads with what I now know to be called Dogman. And that's it, really.
You just told us that you like to do what's called extreme camping. Do you still do that even after you've had the encounters that we're going to talk about tonight?
This is a good question. See, we don't do it as much as we could do because I've settled down a bit now. But if I was single, I reckon I would be. There's too much to see in it, especially in the UK. I travel all over the place. It was a few years ago. I was going to the other end of the country, which is Scotland to me, a place called Inverness. Loch Ness, if you've ever heard of that. I used to go camping there on my own. And this was after my encounter. So I've still got the bug for it, but I don't venture as far as I would like to, definitely. And certainly not on my own anymore. That has changed.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that your ability to extreme camp has been compromised, but yeah, I'm really glad to hear that you still do it, at least to a certain degree. That's great. Yeah, thank goodness for that. You had your encounters where you live in Cheshire, where you're surrounded by countryside, as you say. Having as much trouble as you've had dealing with your Dogman encounters, how can you live out there like that?
We've got no choice, really. It doesn't matter where you end up. I've lived in Cheshire all my life. I wouldn't swap it for the world. I wouldn't know how to. All my family and loved ones are here. I have thought about it because I do like to get about, not abroad, in the UK. I love the whole entire country, but I'm sort of grounded to my home roots, really. But it's like I said, we are surrounded by countryside. No matter where you end up in the UK, it doesn't take long before you've got the countryside at your feet. So it wouldn't matter, really.
Yeah, Dogmen are all over the UK, whether people realize that or not. That's how it is.
Yeah, definitely.
For those of us who have never been to Cheshire, please tell us about it.
Cheshire, it's mostly countryside. There's small towns dotted all over the place. Winsford's absolutely surrounded by woods, forests, canals, lakes, ancient forests. It's a small town. I'm not sure how many people live here now, but we are definitely in the middle of the countryside, and it's lovely. It used to be lovely anyway. Things have changed.
Yeah, I can understand why you'd say that. The listeners will too after they listen to you share what you're going to tell us about tonight.
Yeah.
You have strong opinions about the mindset that seems to persist about it supposedly being impossible for cryptids to exist in the UK. Please expand on that for us.
It frustrates me because the knowledge and personal experience that I have, I find it hard to believe how anybody could have the opinion that this country can't hold cryptids. I hear it all the time in groups. I've been in so many conversations with people, even from this country themselves. And I just have to take a step back, because if they actually had any idea what was out there, they wouldn't go out at night. That's guaranteed. It's not just contained in certain areas of the UK. It is length and breadth of the country. And that is fact. I've done so much homework and studying after the things that I've seen. I've visited certain locations once I've found out a bit of history, and I've spoke to many people who have seen things. I've gone and visited them, and I've been up there personally and seen things which would just turn your hair white. And I can guarantee 100% if anybody is in doubt that this country has no cryptids, they are wrong. 100%.
They sure are wrong. Yeah, there are numerous credible eyewitnesses who have come forward to talk about their experiences with cryptids, so they're definitely there. How do you think it is that large cryptids like dogmen could live right under our noses without us knowing they're there? That is, until they decide to let us see them.
There's a few things that you could say to that. A lot of these cryptids, I mean, they can cloak. We know that. But a lot of them don't. I don't know how many different types of cryptids can cloak, but certain types can. But others, the amount of rural places that people do not touch with their feet around England, it's unbelievable. Farmland especially, it's never touched by anyone but the farmer and the animals. And the place is absolutely, the country is just full of countryside. And a lot of that ground is untouched by man. It's so easy for these animals to live. It's just easy for them. There's too many places for them to be. For instance, you only have to go down the length and breadth of the country on the main motorways, and the fields to the left, the fields to the right, when you've got your sat-nav on. And you know nobody has been on these places apart from the farmers. I mean, why would they? It's just easy for these cryptids, because a lot of the cryptids in the UK that I hear about as well, they get seen running up and down motorways, jumping in these fields, right in plain view of motorists and stuff. I've known so many encounters where people have nearly knocked Dogman over. Even the Bigfoot as well, up and down the country, is unbelievable. But the moment these stories arise, they're soon forgotten because nobody takes it serious. But believe me, they are there, 100%.
Oh, they are. Yeah, they definitely are. It's the perfect place for dogmen to live when you consider how the whole country is dotted with those open areas of countryside, like you just said, so it does make sense. You think dogmen know if you know they're there or not? Please talk us through that.
100%. I'd put small fortune on this theory. I've had my experiences where I've had some real up close and personal, life-changing encounters. And then from that moment on, wherever I see green, I am looking. And I don't know what type of energy I'm pumping out, but I've come across lots of information that says these dogmen can tune in to your, I think it's frequency or vibration, like a switch. They can pick up your vibe, your intentions, and they certainly know. I hear a lot of encounters where people go out there looking for these creatures, and the moment they hit the woods, these dogmen know that somebody's arrived. The senses are too strong. But when people are actually going out with the intentions and with the knowledge, or how much knowledge a person can carry, I put small fortune on that these creatures know exactly who's aware of them and who doesn't. I think a lot of stalking by these animals, I think that's what triggers that off as well. What, for some reason, once a person is showing interest in the subject and they're going out rubbing, or crossing over into grounds where these creatures do visit or live, they know straight away and they're attracted to you like a magnet. That's the way I look at it, definitely.
Yeah, when you consider how keen all their senses are, I'm sure they do know that you're there before you know you are.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. If you've had a dogman encounter and would like to talk with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmenencounters.com and submit a report. If you've had a Sasquatch sighting and would like to be a guest on one of my 2 Bigfoot shows, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let me know. Alright, Dave, due to how traumatic your first encounter was, that's the only encounter you're going to tell us about tonight. Please tell us all about it now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
It happened some years ago. I'd just gone through a long divorce process. And when it actually come to the end, I was living at my parents' while it was all happening. And my intentions were that when it's actually finished, then I'm going to start up and move on. And I thought about what I wanted to do. And the more trauma that I was going through with it, I just wanted to be isolated. So I eventually found the perfect location on the outskirts of my hometown. It was a rural farm. It was perfect. The type of place you would never leave. And I was fortunate enough to get a place. And I quickly decided now it's time to move on and start my life up again. I'd had nearly 2 years of the worst experiences, lost everything. It was time for me to move on. So I eventually moved into this farm. I was working in a neighbouring town. I worked long hours. I would finish around 10 p.m. But the problem was getting to the farm because I didn't drive. No taxis would take me down to the farm because the roads were that old. The lanes were so bumpy. No vehicles would go down. It was too damaging to the cars. So I had to walk the last mile and a half on my own, most of the times in the dark. And the lane that I had to go down, there was woods on either side of me. The first couple of weeks, nothing. It wasn't too long after that, when I was finishing work and I was walking down these lanes, I had this confident feeling that I wasn't on my own during this short walk, and it was making me run the last part of it. And this started to intensify the more I was thinking about it. I started hearing something. It was mimicking me side by side. I could pinpoint it. It's like 15 yards into the woods to me right, and it would stay with me all the way. I thought it was a person. That's all I could think of, because it sounded like they were treading carefully not to break too many branches. But it was impossible. I could hear snapping. I could hear the moving of trees and a lot of breaking. I spent a fortune and a lot of time finding this perfect place, so I wasn't letting it creep me out too much. It didn't take too long before I thought, I am definitely getting followed every time I come down this path, and it started to really unnerve me, so I didn't know what to do with myself. There's only me and one lady who run the farm, and we were really out of the way. There was nobody around. I think it was about a month in. I used to like sitting outside the farm. It's like a place of nature. People go because there's a lot of it. The farm's connected to a massive lake. Migrating birds from all over turn up, migrating geese, swans, come, hundreds of them, all different types of birds of prey. There's horses, cows, sheep, goats, you name it. It's a great therapeutic place. And I used to like to, when I finished work, I'd usually get back about 11 p.m. I'd like to sit outside. Sometimes I'd be out there to the early hours. I'd always get the creepy feelings. I mean, who wouldn't? I was on my own in pitch black quite a lot, but it was okay. This particular night, I'd finished work early. It's about 6 p.m. It was quite warm. I'd asked the lady of the farm if I could borrow binoculars. She had a cracking set of high-powered binoculars. They were as good as night vision. She uses them to spot the birds of prey because she's a big bird lover, and she gave them me. So my idea was, because I was off for a few days, I was just going to sit in my window and relax, because I'm big into my nature, and see what I can see. You never know what's going to land in the fields in front of you. Now, the lake's 100 meters away, say, a massive lake, and I have a small garden in front of me, and a load of bushes, a few trees, and fields and fields and fields. The field in front of me is packed with sheep and goats. The field to my left has got horses in it. They're always there. They're all scattered about. The sheep don't like to come too close to the farm because of their farmhouse dogs. They're quite vicious. They're always attacking the sheep for some reason, and they steer clear. But this particular night, I was up late. It's about 12 o'clock. It was quite warm. I had my window open. I had the binoculars. The moon was quite light. I could see with the binoculars brilliantly. I could see the animals. I think it got to about 1 o'clock, and I heard all this awful racket. Noises I've not heard before. It was, I'd say, a distress noise from the animals in the field. All the sheep and the goats, they had gathered as close to the farm as possible. This wasn't the first time this had happened, but this particular night, I feel a bit uncomfortable. So, and I had the binoculars, so I thought, I'm somewhat dodgy out there. There was 3 horses that were sprinting around the field, following each other. I thought they were playing originally, but when I think back, no, they weren't. They were spooked. The goats, the sheep, they were all clumped up. So 20 yards from my bedroom window, I have a bush line with trees, and they were on the opposite side of that. And when I say crammed in, they were like sardines in a tin, and they were squealing, and it sounded like a squeal of an SOS. That's all I can describe. And now I've got a feeling something's not right. And I was scouring the bush line really slowly, and the whole bush line was still. Nothing was moving. It was so silent, not from the animals, but there was no wind or there was no noises from cars. It was just perfect, apart from the distressed animals, obviously. But can you imagine, have you ever walked through walk through a bush or a tree and you've caught a branch by accident and it's swung. You've took it with you and then it swings back and it starts swinging on its own because you've pulled it back so far. Well, this is what I could see. It stood out like a sore thumb, just one branch on its own, swinging like somebody just ran into it. So I zoomed in, and that's when I seen it was the worst thing that, as far as I'm concerned, eyes can see. I seen a grey, long arm. It was a human arm. But when I say a long arm, and I mean it's long, it's like twice the size of our arms. And there was a hand with claws, and the hand was gigantic. Now, it was an animal. I knew that straight away. And so I've gone to the left and I've seen the other. So I've seen the left arm first, and it was dark grey. I can remember it's clear as daylight. And whatever it was sort of crouched, but hiding. But I could see its arm. I could see the other arm. It was exactly the same length. If I've got my arms dropped, they go by my hips. But these arms, whatever it was, were running down the side of it, and it was not far off touching the floor, if that makes any sense. They were that long, and it was hunched over. And I've started to muck about with the zoom in. I mean, I hadn't took a breath. My heart was starting to pound. And I thought, I don't know what this is, but it's an animal. And it stood on two legs. And I've got the chest, and I've seen breasts. Now, that was the bit which got me, because this was the worst sight. It looked horrible. That's all I can say. There was nothing nice about it, put it that way. Now, it's 1 a.m. So the last thing I seen of it was when I actually zoomed in on its face, and it was a dog's head. It was a big dog's head. Now, it looked smaller because of the position it was in the bushes, and it was hiding. I could clearly see it. If I didn't have binoculars, you wouldn't have seen it, but I did. And I could see it, and it was staring straight at me, dead in the eyes. I don't know the words to explain. The moment I clapped eyes on it, and it was staring straight at me, and I just had this, the only words I can describe is a blind, crippling fear just come out of nowhere, and it hit me straight in the chest. The next minute I was on the floor. My heart was beating so hard, Vic, I'm not joking. I could hear the valves squelching as it tried to push blood through. It was that bad. I thought I was going to die there and then. I managed to crawl. I was on my own this night as well on the farm. Managed to crawl into the bathroom. I thought I was going to die. The noise my chest was making, I don't know what it was, but it was instant. My legs had gone. I had no strength. I actually thought my heart was going to stop. It was that bad. And it lasted for about 30 minutes, where if I wasn't so fit and healthy, if I had any type of heart deficiency or anything up with me, or I was not looking after myself, I reckon it was enough to kill me. I was that scared. If you can imagine what an impending doom feels like, if you multiply that by 20, you won't come close to how I was feeling. It was horrific. So it's early hours now. These hours were the worst, horrific, because I just kept thinking, whatever that was, I'm on my own. It was looking at me like it knew me, as far as I'm concerned. And it wasn't a glance. It gave me the impression it had been looking at me all night, and not just this night, a lot of nights. And the penny dropped, and I thought, oh no, this is what's been following me. And everything started to make sense. The emotions I was feeling was unbelievable. I'd called my father. He come to pick me up at daylight, 8 a.m. I was in the worst state ever. You wouldn't have recognized me. My facial features had changed. It was like I'd just dropped pounds of weight. I was a different colour, a colour I hadn't seen before. I didn't think it was possible. I think my granddad had the same colour when he had died. I was that bad. My father took me to his house. Now, he lives about 30 minutes away. He moved out of Winsford with my mother when he retired. So I didn't go into too much detail with my dad. I just said I'd had a few issues. And he thought I was, because I was, newly divorced and setting up, he thought I was a bit lonely. So that's why the reasons I wanted to stay with him. So I just left it at that. I had 24 hours now to stay at my dad's. And I sat there with just the worst thoughts ever of, I know what I've seen. I know what it looks like. I've got a name for it. How is that possible? This isn't real. This can't be true. Now, when I think about all the danger signs that I was picking up and ignoring during my stay, and I was sat out in the garden on many a night, 20 yards away from where this thing was perched, I started to realize this thing obviously had a problem with me being there. And I was trying to find answers of why that this feeling, I couldn't shake it off. I had to stay at my dad's. It's all I could think of was, I need to answer these questions because I've got to go back there the following morning. What do I say? Does the farm lady know? And I thought, there's no way she does because she's on her own. She's the happiest person on the planet. And this was going to change me for the rest of my life. I knew it. I didn't know what to do with myself. The following morning had come, I didn't sleep. My dad decided, we'll have some breakfast and then he'll take me back. I didn't want to go back, but I'd only just moved in. I put a lot of effort in. I didn't want to lose the place. I didn't want to go back. I had nowhere else to go. I had work that day as well. Everything was piling on top of me. So I decided to go back. My dad dropped me off at 9 a.m. The lady of the farm, she wasn't home. I've gone upstairs, gone back into my room. No sooner than I sat on my bed, she turns up. I could hear her pull a car up on the car park. Give it 30 minutes. This is 30 minutes. She had already been back in the early hours, so I'm not sure what time. Something's happened. She's disappeared. I don't know where she had gone. She's turned up and I heard her coming up the stairs and she's knocked on my door. And we rarely spoke. I work a lot of hours. I'm a bit of a night owl. We've rarely seen each other. And she doesn't knock on my door, but this day she did. This morning she did. I opened the door and she looked pretty poor. She looked white as a sheet as well. So I thought, oh my God, what's she going to say? She says, can I ask you a couple of questions? She says, have you witnessed anything on the farm last night? Any noises out the blue? I said, I wasn't here. I didn't tell her why. I said, I've only just got back myself about an hour ago. I says, why? What's happened? She says, all the chickens. She had 14 chickens, free-range chickens that were quite happy to walk around the farm. They didn't live in a cage. They were free to walk the grounds. They were always on the grass outside my bedroom window. They were friendly as anything. All of them had been killed. Now, I wouldn't say killed was the appropriate word. I'd have said slaughtered because what I seen and what happened the night before just fitted together like the last piece of the jig puzzle. Because all the body parts, none of them were eaten. They were sprayed all over the garden. But the worst part about it was, which I didn't tell the lady, was I'd noticed some of the body parts were smashed all over the wall under my bedroom window. Now, I had to comprehend that. It wasn't the first thought in my mind was the worst one. That doesn't look like an accident. Not only is that uncommon, I've got an answer for it. And it looked like, can you imagine somebody being really angry and picked up one of these chickens and actually hit the wall with it? That's what I seen. Sprayed chicken all over the wall. And it was the most disgusting, horrible kill site I've ever seen. They were everywhere. She was mortified. I had a good chat with her. I didn't tell her anything about what I'd seen under the bedroom wall because I had to knock all that off. I wasn't going to tell her what I'd seen. I couldn't comprehend it myself, let alone tell the lady what was going on. And then I thought to myself, this is down to me. If I hadn't spotted that animal or whatever it was with the binoculars, it spotted me looking for it. And I just think if I hadn't have done that, these animals would be alive. It was a clear warning, a definite threat to me, 100%. The atmosphere was still as bad as it was the night before. And this is the morning after. And I was getting all these horrible feelings. And they were to leave immediately, to pack up my stuff and get out of there first thing in the morning. I was like on a time limit. That's the only feeling I was getting, to go. Do not stay here anymore. If I do, there's going to be a problem, if you can work that out. And I took it. I took the hint and I left. I rung my dad up. I broke down. It was a bit too much for me I found a perfect place and I had a great job. I thought life was going to start getting back and I was going to start building a brilliant future and I wasn't going to move, but it's all been taken away from me in the worst way. My dad said I could go and stay with him, no problem. He said it was too soon for me to move out. It wasn't. It was just what had happened. So he picked me up about 11 o'clock. I packed my stuff up. I didn't even tell the landlady I was leaving. I didn't know what to say to her because I was torn between what do I do? Do I put the effort in that I need to describe to her? She's going to think I'm a crackpot for starters. She's not going to take me seriously. And if I'm going to go down that road, I'm going to have to say, them chickens, there's another thing which haunts me. The last thing she said to me, I says, has anything like this ever happened on your farm? She says, in the 17 years that she's lived there, she has not witnessed anything as devastating as this morning that she's turned up. That scarred me. That was the last words that I had with her. My heart's going now, just replaying. It's a different story reading it when I've wrote it down, but actually bringing it off my chest, the feelings are still well grounded in me. From that moment, Vic, I was lost, to be honest with you. I had these thoughts of my life will never be the same. And like I said to you before, we started recording, I've got a lot of loved ones. I come from a big family. I've got lots of friends I care about. We're all at an age now where everyone's got children. We all love the countryside, keen campers, keen fishermen. And I am on the outskirts of Winsford, and I've just witnessed one of the worst things that a person could imagine. I mean, we've all seen the films where you see these creatures and you just think, it's all right. You can go to bed and tomorrow's another day. This is not going to be the case for me because this was actually a real event. I wish I could have said to myself, and I tried, but there was just absolutely no point in trying to lie to myself. I felt embarrassed because I had such a detailed, and I over-examined it. I didn't sort of hit the face first. I got the arm. I knew it was an animal. I got the length of the arm, which started me. Started to think, oh dear, what is this? I went to the left. I got its other arm. They were long. It was the hands that creeped me out the worst. I've seen many documentaries. I've heard people explain, but people don't go into detail how frightening the sight of the hands that these creatures have. It wasn't so much the hand, it was the length of the fingers, I'd say, and the nails. It was the perfect picture of the worst horror scene, as far as I can explain. Everything you don't want in your vision. I had binoculars and they were quality, and I had the perfect view. This was the moment that I had to make a decision because I live around countryside and my whole life is I'm a keen camper. You put me in a rural area, I thrive, but now it's all jeopardized. How am I going to comprehend going out, let alone I wasn't thinking about going out at nighttime again. I thought it was a nighttime thing. How wrong was I? It's a daytime thing as well, very much so. If anybody thinks that these dogmen only operate at night, believe me, they operate in the day just as much as night. Trust me. And the reason why I'm saying that, Vic, if I can explain to you, there was an event which happened like I said, things happened on the build up towards this. And this is pretty significant, but I let it go because it wasn't scary, but it was something that needed an answer. And I got one, and it was in the first couple of weeks. It was a sunny day. I was off. I had my window open. I was listening to all the birds and I was thinking about going fishing, and I was in a great mood. And I seen what I know now. I didn't know then. It looked like a ghost, right? A human, but completely see-through. I could see the outline of it, and it sprint straight across the garden, hand on heart, under my window and into the field to the right. I had the clearest view of it. Now I know different now. I know what it was. That was a cloaked cryptid. Now, if anybody wants to know anything about a cloaked cryptid, and this is the 100% identical version. So, it's exactly how, if you've seen the film Predator, the alien, when it cloaks itself and moves, you can see the outline of the animal as clear as daylight if it's moving. It stands out like a sore thumb, especially if it's running at speed. It's so obvious. The moment it stands still, you won't see it. You wouldn't know if it was 2 foot in front of your face. But if it moves, you'll see it. That is the best example and version. Not an inch either side. It's the perfect example was the Predator on the film of Arnold Schwarzenegger, where it cloaks itself and then it runs through the trees when Arnold's shooting it. That is exactly what I seen. Now, when it ran past me, I'm talking, it was 10 feet away and I was looking down on it. It was large, I'd have said, a tall human, 6 foot, 7 foot possibly, very fast, thick legs. It looked like a normal body, but very tall. I thought it was a ghost, some kind of entity, and this farm's hundreds of years old. I'm not too spooked. I'm pretty tolerant to anything like that. I'm not easily spooked. I never have been. It'd take a lot to knock me off my perch, trust me. This didn't. And I soon forgot about it as the stay went, and that's when everything else started to. And I remember the patterns of the animals. It's like I said, the animals wouldn't come near the farm. The 2 dogs that she had were vicious and they absolutely hated the sheep. The sheep hated them and there was a divide between them and they would stay scattered over the field, nowhere near the farm. And for the animals to come so close to the farm, and if they could have, they'd have jumped the fence and got in the garden under my window, and that is fact. They'd have never done that with these dogs, but something was spooking them to cram them in such a bunch. I've Googled noises goats make. I've Googled noises sheep make, and I still can't find the identical noise that they made that night. It's weird. It was an obvious cry for help. Can you imagine all the sheep are scattered in a field and they've got an indication that something malevolent is in the area and they let warning signs off to each other. This would have been it. It was like, we're going, we know where we're going together. Let's let this noise out so everybody knows. And they all were doing it. It was the most noisiest racket you've ever heard. You wouldn't have thought anything. You'd have thought exactly like me. That isn't normal. That's not the noise of what a sheep makes. It's clearly got it for a special reason, and this was it. They were in danger. They knew it. And I also got the impression as well, don't ask me why I'm so strong with these decisions, but I wasn't mulling these questions. I had answers for them for some reason. And I'm telling you now, they knew something was out there that jeopardized their lives. You could tell a mile away. I could tell a mile away that something was out there, and I got an horrible, malevolent feeling that maybe something's out there, and I shrugged it off. It doesn't want to kill the animals for food. It just wants to kill them. That's the only feeling that I was getting, and it was strong. The air was thick with it. I used to think I was a bit paranoid, or I'm getting a bit, because it was a creepy area, but I love stuff like that. Well, I did do. It would be so therapeutic in the day, and as nighttime come, I would sit outside right near the bushes, and the sheep would be scattered all over the field, and they would make the noises of sheep, and it was so peaceful. It was like, I'm on a little holiday resort. But then the odd night, it wasn't like that. There was no noise. It's like they were all keeping stum, and I'm talking 80 sheep. And then this wasn't normal, and I used to think, there's something going on. And I got a little bit excited, and I thought, I'm going to have to get some binoculars. And then I found out she had the cracking pair, and I asked her, and my idea was I'm going to sit there and I'm going to scour these fields, because I'm getting everything was overwhelming me, the following that. And then I realized I am getting followed, but I never thought it was an animal or something as dangerous as what I witnessed, because it's not possible. These things are not real. No chance. I've never in my life, up to the age of 40, ever come across a story. I never looked for it on Google, YouTube. I was never interested. I certainly wasn't bothered when I went camping in remote places what the history was of the area. But from the moment that this happened, I started studying on areas all over the country, the length and breadth. I've been digging up history. And the werewolf history in the Cheshire area goes back hundreds of years, right back to the Romans, and it's documented. If you look for it, you'll find it, and you'll see that these stories of these dogmen and these animals, whatever types they are, and I've found out personally, and I can guarantee you there's not one type, there's a lot of types. I've seen 3 different types, up close, personal, from safety of being indoors. They're different types, and they're big, very big. What hit me as well is I didn't know them, but it's always the knowledge that I've gained. These animals can drop you like a feather, no matter how much you weigh, no matter how strong you are, no matter how much of a powerful human you think you are. They only have to look at you, and whatever they do, they can put you on your back in a state of paralysis. And it's something that they can choose to do to you, whether they do, whether they don't. I think it's down to the moment that you've got at that moment with them. And me, I think when I go back and I've put the pieces of the puzzle together, I've just thought, oh my God, I could have worked this out well before if I'd put any effort in. And I'm thinking, I've been in the way of this creature and its hunting patterns, because I quickly realized that all the migrating geese that were landing, they were coming from abroad, and they would land all together, and they would all group together. The swans would join them. And then every now and again, I would think they're killing each other. It sounds like they're literally killing each other. They're attacking each other. It was gone from peaceful bird noises, like you'd expect in a place in nature. I hear it in the day, and you can see clearly they're all swimming and they're getting on. They'll have the odd peck at each other. But sometimes at night, they're actually making noises. I thought they were killing each other. They were attacking each other at night time every now and again. But after all this had happened, I thought, no, they're not. They're getting attacked. Something's coming in from the fields to the right, which stretched all the way to a neighbouring town called Crewe. And it's so easy to get to all the surrounding woods and trails. And it's like a route in. But this lake is such a food source. So many different types of birds that like to land in water, but at night time they come on the land to sleep, especially the geese. Well, at night time, for some reason, they're all ending up back in the lake, and Canadian geese don't do that really. They find a settlement on the bank. Summit's attacking them, and then I realised that's what these animals are coming in, and they're going for the birds, the big birds as well. Swans were getting slaughtered all the time. The landlady of the farm, she had fishing rights for the top of the lake, and I was a keen fisherman. I couldn't wait to get stuck in, but I was concentrating on work for a start to enjoy myself. But there was the problem with foreigners that were turning up and stealing fish when they caught them. But she was also blaming them for bird deaths, the swans that were getting killed. They were in a local paper. Somebody would decapitate and de-wing a swan and leave the body parts spread all over the bank. It was getting blamed on these foreign fishermen, and it wasn't them. These animals were getting killed, whether it's for sport, pleasure, or whether, another thing which I've come to know, there's surrounding areas in Winsford. I've gone and archived and documented. I even went as far as knocking at farmers, local farmers. Some of them were really obnoxious. Some of them were really welcoming to me questions. But I just wanted to know, has anybody had any livestock killed recently, in the past, or if they've only just took the farm on, did the previous owners have any problems? Because we don't have problems with wild animals. I was struggling to find anybody that could explain what I had seen. I did find them in the end, people that were describing exactly what I seen. And I was thinking, that's the exact type that I seen, definitely. But I couldn't find anybody that had seen a female dogman. I've not come across many. There's a few in the UK people that have. Funnily enough, they're close to the Cheshire area. But the one I seen was 100% female. If you can imagine breasts that a monkey has or an orangutan, they were exactly like that. Like no hairs on the chest. The arms did. And they weren't big arms. Not like you hear a lot of them muscly. They were long. You wouldn't want them round your neck, put it that way. But it was the length, the sight of these arms. If I wasn't in the comfort of my bedroom on the second floor with that tiny bit of safety net, which soon got took away once I got that horrible death feeling. I don't think I'd have got past the first moment where I seen its arm. At the moment I seen its arm, the first thing that come in my mind was animal. Straight away. I didn't have to think. I knew it, whatever it was an animal. I quickly realised it was stood up. Not on four legs, it was stood up. And it was panting. But I've heard stories of people where they describe the dogmen where they breathing and they sound like they smoke 1,000 cigarettes a day in there. This wasn't. This looked like it was calm as anything, but it's got big lungs to fill, basically. I could see the movement and the chest, slow, big. Could tell it was filling up a big set of lungs. That's the only impression. But I was coming apart so quickly. But I don't understand. There's another question which I've still not got answers for. Well, I have got an answer for it now, but at the time, I don't understand because all my strength went. And when I say I don't drink, don't smoke. I am into my fitness. I could run until I would fall asleep before I stopped running. I was that fit. I eat like the best that a person could. I study health for a reason, but it meant nothing. The moment I zoomed in and caught the look on its face staring at me, it did something to me that has happened again to me 18 months later in Yorkshire, in England, which is another encounter, which I'll tell you at some point. The same thing. It was like I'd been hit by a freight train of death feelings. And I'm not talking one feeling. I am literally going to die. It's not a thought. It's not a fear. It's beyond fear. It's actually something's affecting the way my body was. It's like a short circuited right in my heart. And the noise my heart was making, I don't think anyone that's had a heart attack would have ever heard what I heard. I've Googled heart problems to get to the bottom of what my heart had done, because I had basically thought my life was over. Whatever I've seen is going to go back to do what it does. I'm going to die tonight. I can't move. I couldn't get help. I've got a big heart, me, and I had the back of my mind, I'm thinking, should I call the police? And I thought, I can't call the police because I've only just moved. The woman will think I am an absolute idiot. The more I thought about what I should do, and my heart was pounding out my chest. The squelching noise as it struggled to push blood through it was so loud. I had tears rolling down my face. I thought I've just been killed by something looking at me. It was that real. It's no joke. I don't know what it's done to me, but it's paralyzed me. And I was on that floor from the moment that happened when I crawled into the bathroom, and I had visions of it sat outside, and I had the feeling that it hated me, and it had a reason to hate me as well. I only got that answer. I didn't want to think about it because it was just pushing me over the edge. I was thinking, what have I done? I've got a feeling as I'm in this state that I've done something to it. That's the only feeling that I had, and I couldn't get rid of it. I am being blamed for something right now, and I don't know how it was possible. It was crazy. It was just things you can't ever expect that you'd ever deal with. I just thought that thing outside absolutely despises me. I knew that straight away, and it wasn't something I'd made up. It was real. I don't know why, but the only thing I could think of was when I was always outside, I was a night owl. I spent my time outside, and I think I'd disrupted its feeding pattern, or I kept spooking the animals or something, and I've got on its nerves to the point it's not happy, and it must have been figuring out what to do with me, and it was following me, and it was making decisions on me, because it was following me every night as I walked down that lane. I could hear the delicacy of whatever it was, nimbly trying to guide itself through the woods, which were pitch black. Now, it's impossible. Nobody could do that in daylight, but this thing was, and it was snapping things. And I just got the feeling that that was a big mistake. And you could feel it was happening again and more. And I thought to myself, something is in there following me every night. And I can't get a lift down here. And I had no choice. The last thing on my mind was it could be anything like that. But the whole process has never left me. It's definitely scarred me for life. It's like I said, if I'd have let it fester, if I'd have let it consume me, because I spent so many nights on my own, I'd already ostracized myself from everyone while I was getting over my divorce. So I had that gap where I didn't have to go straight into me life because they'd have known something was up with me and I couldn't hide it. So I had the time to reevaluate my situation and try and get some answers, and I did. And what got that ball rolling was when I came across your show. I wish I could remember which episode got my attention, but straight away I was hooked. And then it opened Pandora's box because I needed more. It's sort of intertwined with my love for the outdoors. If I didn't have a passion for the outdoors and the countryside, it wouldn't have happened. But because I have, it didn't die. It wasn't killed. I thought it would have been. I thought my life's over as it is. I don't know what I'm going to do myself, but the next time you see me anywhere near a field at night, there's more chance of me shaking hands with Elvis Presley tomorrow than me ever going near anything green again. And that was it. I managed after a few months, I think it was 3 months before I took the big pill and me and my friend went out camping for the first time, and it happened again, but worse. That was it then. It was pretty much the way it was then, and it has been like that for the last 5 years. And I've gained quite a lot of knowledge through your show. I've met so many people from all over the world, and every story that I've heard, there's not one that hasn't made me sit down and just feel devastated for them. Every single person that takes it. We're not all built to deal with stuff like this. And I'm telling you now, there's a lot of people that won't. And my heart goes out to them, because when this is introduced to your life, it's a maker or a breaker. But the daunting thing is, if people do experience this on the level that I did, and there's a lot worse, and I'm thinking anything less, it all still meets in the same department. What do you do from that moment? Because your brain starts to work. Well, does this happen? Did he go there? I can't go there. But then you start thinking about your loved ones. I've got to warn them, especially when you hear your family getting ready for a picnic. They're all getting excited. They're all up for it. They want to do something different. They want to go deeper into the woods, or they want to go to another place that they've not been. And I'm thinking, you can't do that. You cannot get yourself ready for a picnic, drive halfway across the country to a place that you see as beautiful through whatever history it has. Because I'm thinking, now I know what's out there. I'm thinking these are the places where you go for a picnic and you don't come back. And these stories, sorry, Vic, I've got too much coming into my mind now. And this is why I only wanted to do a little bit with you, because there's so much to cover. The rural areas around my hometown, we are absolutely scattered with history. And there's always stories. Where my dad lives, it's a place called Tatton Hall in Chester. It's still County of Cheshire, but it's connected to rivers, canals, waterways. Every forest and woods has a connection to each other. It's easy for these things to get about. It's like me knowing I could walk around my hometown with my eyes closed. It's easy for them to do it as well. And you can see, once you look at it on Google Earth, you know how these things can get about. You know what fields they would go across. You would take them if you were avoiding the public. And they're the places you need to swerve like the plague, because they are out there. And another thing as well is, what I gathered, the local woods, we have a wood which I had another encounter at. We've only been there twice ever since. I was hearing all sorts of stories about people seeing these big dogs coming down the train track into the forest, off the train track. Which I quickly realised then that these things, they hunt in forests, they hunt in woods, but they live on the outskirts of these areas where food lives. They don't live where the food is, they live away from it. So if the forest is full of the animals that it would have, they like to keep them there. Because if they populated it, these dogmen, they're only going to spook the animals into moving to another. So they like to keep them in. And this is the sort of patterns that I started. And after speaking to a lot of farmers, now I don't know one dog that could get off the lead, which is always being blamed in the local papers. I'm forever gathering evidence of sheep have died None of them have been attacked. No predator has touched them. There's no teeth marks. The first thing you'd think of, which goes with the normal grain of things, is it something to do with UFOs? But what I found after that, when I've spoke to farmers and they've been good enough to trust me, I've not gone and told them me reasons why. I've just picked up this information and I'm curious. And some of them have told me some of their sheep are getting killed in big numbers, but they're all dying of heart attacks. They're not being bitten. They're not being torn apart like some of the animals that do get ripped apart. Then the cows are having their underbellies ripped and everything's being put down to dangerous dogs. Not dangerous dogs that have been caught and then put down. They're not around, but the fingers waving at a dangerous dog. I know different. I know it's definitely down to a canine. It ain't no domestic dog and it isn't no dangerous dog. It is a full-on predator that lingers out there that's doing this. And the hallmarks are everywhere, especially the sheep that I find. There's places all over. My friend said he lives in a place called Macclesfield. It's about an hour away from where I live. It's countryside connected to a moors. This moors has a history of attacks and dating back to, you'd lose count if you went back how many years. But all these animals that were getting killed in certain areas, the sheep are dying from full-on heart attack. They've been run ragged by something to the point of where they've died and then they've been left. Now, I did a lot of homework and I've spoke to a lot of people, I've listened to a lot of things as well, and people have seen these big, massive dogs chasing sheep to the point where it looks like they're playing with them. But I found out quickly that dogmen, some of them, I can't remember exactly now who put this on me, but when they rear it, though, bringing up young, they like to send them out to practice killing, basically. This is why some people don't understand. You know, there's a lot of livestock, but people are saying there's dogmen about these livestock don't get touched. Yeah, well, it's optional. You want to just dig a little deeper and you'll soon find, probably closer than you think, that animals in other areas are getting slaughtered, killed, practiced on. The younger dogmen, I've heard people numerous times in groups saying that they've seen them running sheep ragged. They could quite easily caught up with him and ripped him apart, but they haven't. They've chased him to the point the sheep drops of exhaustion and they leave him like a training tactic sort of thing to teach them to hunt. Very clever. Now, how true that is, I've not personally seen, but the stories, it all makes perfect sense. But then you get the stories where a lot of sheep have been ripped apart and not eaten, but killed, like the chickens. If you talk about a dogman, any type of dogman, they are designed. I'm intrigued. It is a full-time hobby of mine, a passion. Now, this cryptid subject is very much part of my life and will be to my last days. That's fact. I wouldn't replace it with anything. I don't give up. If I get something in my mind or a place I want to visit, I'll always go. I will go there and I will dig up something and I will come back with some type of info from the past of the person that's witnessed something or that I've made. A lot of people contact me on my Facebook that I've got quite friendly with who have had similar encounters, not really in your face, but they know something is wrong. And I've sort of pushed them in the right direction and told them to get into dogman encounters. That's where the growth of the knowledge comes from. The more episodes you listen to, everything seems to come into one pot eventually. And you know different types of dogmen, the patterns, the way they operate, the way they can leave you, the way people have been so close to them and not been killed. But I have started an interest in what about people that are killed, that these governments, they know the amount of people in this country that disappear every year is in hundreds and hundreds of thousands. These people are missing without trace. They're not found. They're not returned. They're gone. Never an answer to where they've ended up. How many of these people meet their end to these cryptids? This is something we'll never find out, because if the government starts letting us know what's in our countrysides, this country will come to a grinding halt. And that is fact. Length and breadth of the country would not be able to operate. The government would then quickly have to answer for how many years of past devastation that they've covered on many levels, how many deaths have they been aware of that are down to these creatures that they've ignored telling the public? They must have accumulated over how many years have gone on. They're never going to let us know. And the more this subject gets out, the more we uncover, we're never going to crack that bit we need, because it's always going to get shut down by the government, and we're sort of facing an uphill battle no matter how hard we try. It's a dangerous game to play as well for anyone that gets really the bee in the bonnet. I know America has a lot of hunters. We don't have that over here. We just have keen campers and people that are interested in the outdoors. There's a lot of people that are interested in the cryptid world, but there's a handful of people who have had experiences in your face, especially on my level, which I've had. I seem to be one of a group of people. Yeah, I think there's a lot more to the story. There's so many people that need to come forward with the stories, and these areas need documenting for everyone's safety, really, because it's okay in the daytime when these parks and tourist attractions, these outdoor areas that are open to the public. At nighttime, they're a different place, no matter what. And the thing is, if the governments were to come out and let us know exactly what they keep from us, they would have to shut these places down for our safety. It grates on me how they can just let us wander around, especially it seems though I know what's out there. But I'm rambling now, Vic. You've started me off.
Not rambling at all. Like I told you, put it out there. I'm just glad that you're doing all this.
Yeah, so I mean, that's it in a nutshell, Vic. The next encounter, which was a few months back, that is the story for another day, because that will take the wind out of my sails, because that was pretty terrible. We needed help from the police. The armed police turned up, was out the woods. That was horrible. But that'd make it cracking. But I've just got no steam left in my engine at this moment. It's not often I get to get it off my chest. This is like one of them opportunities, and it's just took all my energies away from me. But is that any good for you?
Oh, it sure is. Do you think the cloaked dogman you saw was the same one you saw through the binoculars?
That is a cracking question. Right. And I've thought about this. I don't think so. I think it was completely different by the body shape. This actually looked like a human, but a big human. It didn't have any animal features. I can't explain it. It didn't look animal in any way. It looked like a person in an invisible suit. Vic, I'm not joking. Hand on heart, on my mother's grave, this is genuine. I was 10 foot away looking down at it. It didn't sprint past like lightning. It ran quickly, right in front of me. I was directly looking at it, and it went under my nose, straight hopped over the fence into the field and disappeared. It was just like a big human. I always think that maybe it was Bigfoot, possibly. I'm possibly wrong. It was definitely not the shape of what I've seen in the bushes, because that was pure animal, 100% animal. An animal that isn't friendly, an animal that doesn't want to be friends. If you try and communicate with it, you're just asking for trouble. A lot of people think these animals want to communicate with you. Maybe so. I know a lot of people have said this, that they've had some kind of communication. But this was, if you get too close or you keep irritating me, something's going to go wrong. And I had my warning, and it was taken.
Do you have any concerns about leaving your girlfriend at home there alone now that you know that dogman's out there?
Louise, we were in the same year as each other at school. We weren't friends in school. We got together 12 months ago through Facebook. She knows I'm a keen camper. I've took her out twice camping. I would never take her anywhere where I can't defend her. So there's a couple of friends of mine that have been introduced to the subject. They're big followers of yours as well. And we're like a small team. I've met two people. One is a girl from Scotland called Ashley. She caught my eye in the group. She was very intrigued, and she reminded me of me in many ways. And another bloke called Johnny from Manchester. There's a friend of mine that I met. He's an investigator from down London called Ian. Cracking bloke. Really, he's into it. He knows his stuff. He's had encounters. And we're sort of coming together as a little group. We're planning on, hopefully, as the future comes, to be doing things together. We don't want to irritate the topic. we want to get out there and hopefully get some good answers and visit some places and try and uncover these mysteries and get more involved and come out with some answers, really. And we're slowly building this little pack of ours up, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to get some answers, real good answers to what's out there.
When you guys do go out there, if you do go out there, I hope the answers you get are good ones.
Definitely, yeah. From now on, I'll definitely be updating yourself through email, anything that I've come across now, and you can make your mind up whether it's interesting for you. And anytime, hopefully, if you do, we can do this again. I'll be more confident, more prepared. Hopefully, I'll have more strength in getting me details across to you in the best way possible. That's definitely going to happen. Brilliant.
Well, I'd love to have you back on. How big would you say she was?
It was crouched, sort of hunched over because of the position it was hiding in. Because it was a bush, it had to lower itself to fit in the bush. Otherwise, it would have been stood up and I'd have seen it clearly. So it's skillfully hidden. And like I said, if it didn't have binoculars, I wouldn't have seen it. Not a chance. If it could cloak itself, I got the impression it was that confident it didn't need to, because it was confident that I was not going to spot it. But I did. And I think that's what triggered the attack off on the chickens. And I think it was furious. That's the impression I got. That's why I took such a hit with whatever it projected to me. That could have wiped me off the face of the planet. It was meant to disable me. Now, I don't know whether it was meant to disable me, and it would have done if I was outdoors and paralyzed me with this. So it could have done what it wanted to. I don't know. These are questions that I don't want answering. But I'd have said 6 to 7 foot if it was stood up. Because I didn't see its legs. I just got the impression with the length of its arms, the way it was crouched, and the size of the bush. If it straightened itself out, it was tall. Very tall.
Well, that's both the good and the bad news of it. She could do whatever she wanted to do to you, and she has done basically what she has wanted to do to you, and she hasn't done anything that she didn't want to do to you. With that in mind, is it lost on you that even though she knows where to find you, she never has harmed you?
Well, these are questions which I reckon if I'd have stayed and ignored, I don't think I'd be here today. I reckon I'd have gone missing. I reckon it was waiting for the right moment. It's not stupid. I think it's definitely aware that it doesn't want to make a mess on its own doorstep. It doesn't want to make a mess in its hunting ground and attract attention. I think they're very, very intelligent when it comes down to what they do, where they need to be. Do you understand? If they need to be somewhere and it works for them, they like to operate it where they do not attract attention. Now, I'm a nosy person. I'm up at night. I'm interested. I'm aware, and I'm picking up vibes. I'm very sensitive as well to feelings and stuff. And I've always been like that. So it was easy for me to link to this animal. I just didn't have the particulars to put the puzzle together. From that moment, whenever I get a certain feeling when I've been out, I know what it is. It's a feeling you'll never forget. It's unmistakable. Dogman. Nothing could mimic it. It's their sort of scent, or the feelings that they can provide. Once you go into their energy zone, their aura, whatever, their field of energy, we all pump energy out, Vic. We've all got a frequency that goes a certain length. People can walk in it. I could feel your vibe if you were angry. It's the same with dogmen. You go into a vicinity where a dogman is, or where it's been, it leaves a stench, not just a smell, but it leaves a feeling in the atmosphere, and you will never forget it. Once you've experienced it and you know what it is, you avoid it like the plague in many levels.
I can understand why you would feel and think that if you wouldn't have realized that she was there, that you would have been a goner, but dogmen don't need to rely on stealth to dispatch you. She could have broken into your house that night and just ripped you apart where you laid or were sitting, so she does not need to rely on stealth to get you if she really wanted to do that. So, yeah, please don't lose sight of that.
That's what I should have covered. When I was on the floor in the bathroom, that was a thought process that I was struggling with. I was on my own, and I knew that it knew I was on my own. And I was thinking, if it knows I'm on my own, it wouldn't take much for that to break in the farm and get to me in this room. And it was real. If it wanted to get in here now, I was just praying to God the doors were locked, because I know it's got hands. It could turn a doorknob. It could open a door. I knew that. And I was thinking, if it's got any brains on it, it's going to put two and two together and it's going to know how I was thinking, have I locked the door? Have I done this? Is it going to be able to find me? Then I thought, I must be pumping out such an energy of fear. It's going to sniff me out if I was 20 miles away, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it definitely dawned on me. You can pick and choose how they go about it, but if they want you, if they want to damage you, they know exactly how to go about it and what level to give it you at, whether it's full on and you lose your life, or whether they just want to give you a scare. They've got the whole spectrum at the fingertips, and they're very good at it.
That's right. And it's vitally important you never lose sight of that fact. And dogmen don't need to use doors. They don't need to use windows. If she wanted to, she could break right through the walls of your house and get you. But that hasn't happened. That's both the good news of it and the bad news of it.
Yeah, 100%. I got that, what you've just said there. I had already took that on board, and I knew the only place that you're going to be safe is away from them. It doesn't matter what you have around you, what type of safety net you have, they are going to find a way in to get you. They will take down anything. I understand that completely. Yeah, it's frightening. It's very interesting though. It's yeah, I'm intrigued by it every day. It's the bug doesn't go for me now. It's 100% part of my life. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's fascinating though, Vic. It's something I wouldn't want to change.
Everything we're talking about right now is both frightening and comforting at the same time. You just need to focus on not losing sight of the comforting aspects of it, the whole idea that she could have done these things if she wanted to, but she hasn't. That's the key. You said that you were most taken by her claws. How long would you say they were?
They were so prominent. They were long. They were dark. But it was the fingers, Vic. The fingers scared the life out of me. They were the eeriest. I have never seen anything like it in my life. They were massive. They were so long, the sight of the hand sent me into a palpitation. It was frightening. They were really long. Unbelievable. So scary. If it got a grip of you, it could wrap its fingers round your throat and another person's throat. Make it the fingers wrap round two of you easily. That's not a lie. They were massive. Real, like, shovel hands with long fingers. Do you know the Freddy Krueger film where he opens his scissor hands? It was like that. It reminded me of that, but a foot off the floor, just dangling there. But they were moving up and down with the way it breathed, the way it filled its chest up. And his arms were going up and down, up and down. I went to the left one, I went to the right one, I went to its chest, and then I went to its face, and then I was on the floor out cold. It was amazing. Unbelievable.
That's a good way to describe it. Would having had a gun in your hands that day made you feel any safer?
No, never. Not a chance. I wouldn't have been able to pull the trigger. I was sapped of every ounce of strength that I had, and that's the only way I can describe it. If I had a gun on my side, I wouldn't have been able to be quick enough to pull that out and use it. In the time it took it to drop me like a sack of potatoes, it was instant. And then I didn't have the strength to do anything. Yeah, that's how I thought it was life over. I think lions do it, apparently, in the wild in Africa. They have a thing called infrasound where they can project feelings of fear. They send animals prey into paralysis. It's a similar thing, I believe so. It was total, absolute loss of bodily function. If I had any fluid in me, Vic, it would have been the first thing to leave me body, me will to live. You just wanted it all to be over. It was that horrific of a moment. And it was long-winded. I still don't know how I got through it, to be honest with you. I've just got a good, healthy heart. Because I reckon, like I said, if I had any type of deficiency in my health, I reckon that would have been the bit where my body had just gone, I can't handle this, and shut me off. I was that petrified.
Well, thank goodness your heart was in such good shape.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think is lost on someone who knows about dogmen but has never had an encounter with one, Dave?
If I've took the question right, some people are overconfident that these animals are friendly, and it's a particular person that they're everywhere. I hear it all the time. Oh, I'm comfortable with this dogman on my prop. And I'm thinking to myself, how long is that going to last? These people are intertwining their lives with animals like this, and they're having what they believe to be bonding sessions and leaving food out. You should never leave food out for these animals. They're not going to see you as a friend. They'll see you as a food source. That's common sense. But a lot of people don't. They think they're going to get presents back. And I've heard stories that dogmen have left dead badgers and dead rabbits in people's gardens. So they've gone out and left fruit. And I'm thinking, you don't want to get this connection going the way you're thinking, because 9 times out of 10, this is going to end up in a bad way. They're going to rope you into such a comforting, they're not daft. They know that they can do so many tricks of the trade, what I'd say, of getting you out of your house into your little comfort zone, which they can get in. And I think that a lot of people are lost with the danger of these animals, and they take big chances.
I'm glad you said that, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't think there's any future in trying to appease them that way.
No, definitely not. It's not worth it.
Not a good idea.
I'm sure these animals are, on many levels, are curious. Some of the stories about them being telepathic. I'm an open-minded person. It helps me to take on more knowledge in a positive way. I do not doubt, I do not disbelieve anything that I hear. I always treat it with the same sword. I believe. And the stories about the telepathic, the way they can manipulate your thoughts, play with your emotions, they've got that ability, and they're not going to use it always in a positive way. They will use it in malevolent ways. They will take your guard down, pull you out of your comfort zone, and end your life if you're not careful. And that's fact. We don't know enough about them to try and to make that bond a real thing, in my eyes. Although, I mean, I sound hypocritical because it's part of my life now, and I've got so many things I want to do, and I'm going, I'd love to have a positive encounter. But Vic, everything I've seen, and I've had some pretty unexplainable moments which scar you for life, they're all malevolently natured. None of them were a good thing. They were all dangerous on a high level. And I reckon if I was in any different situation or position, I'd have lost my life. But I still keep going back, so I'm sort of stuck in a rut. I've just got to be a bit more careful, I think.
Well, it hasn't been easy, but you're dealing with it, so I think you deserve a lot of credit for that. But having said that, Dave, it's about time for us to get out of here. But before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
If anybody is struggling with any of these subjects and that, but just branch out to yourself, because it's the only way. You've got the best platform to spread all the awareness that people need, because a lot of people are suffering in silence with keeping the sightings, the encounters to themselves, in fear of having their lives wrecked just by mentioning it. I feel sorry for them, and I think that if anybody's listening to your shows that has got something to say, to get in touch with you and get it off your chest, because we're all on the same side. We're all in the same department, and we'll get there together, if that makes any sense.
That does, and very well said. Well, Dave, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing the details of that experience with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers, Vic. I've really enjoyed myself.
Well, I'm glad it was as positive of an experience as possible, considering the nature of it. But having said that, thanks again so much. Have a great night.